How much do you eat? Hi, welcome everybody. It's Jason Barlow, RMT, and I'm here today as your therapist and as your coach to help you transform any stress, tension, and pain into health, happiness, and vitality. Every Thursday, I like to dive a little deeper into my new book, the 15-Step Playbook for Pain Relief. Hey, if you've not had a chance to download a copy, you gotta go do it quick. Very soon, we're gonna be pulling the full book from the site, and it's just going to be a free chapter. So if you've not got your digital copy yet, go get one today at jasonbarlowrmt.com. Just leave me your email address and I will fire off a digital copy for you. If you want to get this particular cover copy, it's a paperback, you just go to Amazon in your respective country and put in the title there, the 15-Step Playbook for Pain Relief. Amazon's cool. They'll print it and deliver it straight to your door within a week. So I designed this as a playbook that you can literally carry it around with you, roll it up, toss it in your gym bag, toss it in your pocket, share it with others, scribble on it, highlight it, make funny faces on me if you wish, whatever entertains you. But the bottom line is I want to see some people's copies of this being used, whatever that looks like. I like seeing my book being used to the best of its ability because I feel quite confident to say that if you do follow my 15-step playbook for pain relief, you'll be leaning towards, if not already attaining, more pain relief and having more expression of health, happiness, and vitality. This comes from a wealth of experience and training over a couple of decades now. What I share with you in my book is everything that I've applied myself and got results for personally and professionally, being a massage therapist with patients coming to see me for these specific needs. This week, we are diving a little bit deeper into steps 10 through 12, and it's orientated around food. One of my favorite topics, one of my favorite things to do is to enjoy good quality food. And my wife might quickly say, yeah, but I wish you cooked it more. But you're such a splendid cook and such a great cook, and you have such a wealth of experience that as soon as I start to, I don't even know what the correct term is. As soon as I start to do the prep, it takes me so much more time. You're just so super efficient. So I delegate that job. Hey, I can cook. I just like to prioritize with other things, and far superior cook than I am. And like I said, well more experienced. Anyway, that's an aside. Nutrition, let's get into that. So how much do you eat? What is the right amount to eat? There is no right answer to that. There is no wrong answer to that. It's very specific to you. See, what we got to understand is that we are just as unique on the inside as we are on the outside. And even my twin boys are unique on the inside, and they're a little bit unique on the outside. But if you don't spend too much time with them, you would look at them and go, I can't tell who's who, right? Now, the same thing applies to everybody in the world, billions of us. We're as unique on the inside as we are on the outside, which means then that the way that we eat, when we eat, and so on and so forth, you can break this down fairly exhaustively, right? And that's where it can be a lot of time investment. And I'm trying to condense this for you in as quick a way as I can, is that there's billions of ways to eat. Now, the essence of where I'm sharing this research and wisdom from is from the great work of Dr. Weston A. Price. He was a dentist and a nutritional pioneer back in the 30s and 40s, and he traveled all around the world and studied indigenous people, from the Eskimos up in Alaska to the indigenous people in Africa to the indigenous people down in Australia, and to South America and to Asia and everywhere in between. The bottom line, and you could just Google his name and put in images, Weston A. Price, and he wrote a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And what he found, which really intrigues and fascinates me, especially because I love studying about longevity, having more life, more energy, more vitality, more happiness. And so he explored from a nutritional point of view, what can happen on a degeneration experience for people who had moved from pure indigenous diet to white man's diet, as he classed it. So these were indigenous people. He explored and studied them in their normal natural settings. And then there were some people who had obviously moved to a nearby city or town, and they were living with more luxuries, shall we say. But now they were starting to indulge in more foods that they didn't have access to before. And he classed those as white man's food, right? It's the processed flour, the processed milk, processed sugar, artificial foods, and so on and so forth. And then what he did is he took photos through the generations, from the great-grandparents to the great-grandchildren, and saw what structurally happened on a skeletal frame. That alone tells you, just the pictures alone, you don't have to read the book, just look at the pictures on Google, and you'll see that there's a symmetrical, beautiful, almost circular face to the pure indigenous people. And that changed as they had more generations coming through those local towns where they were exposed to more white man's food. And so what he was interested in particular is over here on the pure indigenous side to the non-pure indigenous side. What he illustrated by way of pictures alone, like I say, is that they had no crowding of teeth, no dental cavities, no words even for diabetes or heart disease or obesity, because those things didn't exist in their culture, because the foods and their environment and the way they lived their life didn't permit it, right? They just had this beautiful, natural, pure diet. And over here, and this is all around the world, bear in mind, and then over here, these non-pure indigenous people, by virtue of their foods and their environment they were now growing up in, they'd had a narrower skeletal frame, especially of their facial bones. And as such, then the crowding of the teeth, more dental decay, more cavities, and also then gave rise to more experiences of diseases such as heart disease and diabetes, and even elements of obesity. So what he was illustrating is that when we fix or strictly follow our pure native diet, then we can achieve more expressions of health, happiness, and vitality, more longevity, and less degeneration. The question, though, that we have to throw out is, I moved from England. My kids now are Canadian born here, and I'm a Canadian, by the way, now, but my family heritage is in the UK. My wife's family heritage is Poland, all right? And then if you keep looking through, you're like, whoa, I don't know where to start. So where do you start? You listen to your body. That's the bottom line. Because, if we go back to our early ancestors, we could argue that we should all be on the same type of diet, but then the diversity of our cultures and the way the world grew and evolved and the population mass and so forth, now we've got all these fragments of people all around the world that, as Dr. Weston Price discovered, Alaskans were on a very sea vegetable, mammal diet, fish diet, because they couldn't grow things in their culture, in their environment. Yet the Africans, they had crops and they had, insect bugs and animals that were native to the area. They didn't have access to the ocean, so they didn't have fish. But yet they were all, regardless of where they were in the world, they were all thriving. So it just illustrates the possibilities of how we can thrive once we find out what is it that's going to help us to thrive. So I'm a big advocate, as we start to dive into these steps 10 through 12, I'm a big advocate of leaning towards as much natural, organic as possible food sources. Something that doesn't have a label on it is one of the simplest way. And William Walcott, the founder of Metabolic Typing Diet, he says, if your ancestors 10,000 years ago didn't used to eat it, don't eat it. Now, that's great on one level. I agree. And I've followed it very strictly for a period of time, right? In the past, sometimes I go through cycles where I'll do a cleanse and I'll follow that strictly again. But to practically follow that year round in the culture that we live in can be really, really challenging. And then we start to put these, feelings behind it too, don't we? We start to feel guilty. Oh, I shouldn't. I took a break, but I was doing this and that happened. Well, I was and it's too much, right? And then we get overwhelmed and we're like, screw it. I'm just going back to how I used to eat. The important thing is to practice, as they describe in Buddhism, with the practice of meditation. The practice of Buddhism is a vast, wide open river that's consistently flowing in the right direction. And that's what we've got to do. My experience is the same with our nutrition approach, is whatever it is that we decide and feel as though is the right approach for us, we just practice it and consistently, not these huge spikes of, okay, I'm going on a cleanse for the next 16 weeks and then I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It can be too much. It can be excessive and overload. And hey, if you've never done it and you want to dabble with it, try it, experiment. Like, you've got to come from your own experience, but I'm just sharing my experiences with you. Take them with a pinch of salt, pardon the pun, but you do with it what you wish. So what I'm saying here is, how do you justify how much you need to eat on a given daily basis? There's some wonderful apps out there. You can follow that. But ultimately, you got to listen to your own body. Now, in the link below, or in the description below, there is a link. You just copy and paste it and put it into your browser. And I'm giving you one of my free tools. It is called the 7-Day Nutrition and Sleep Journal. All you have to do is download it, print it off, and you could print off 4 copies. You've got 28 days, a month's worth. The bottom line to this is, when you start, and I've given you all the guidance within the journal as well, but what I want to say is that when you're writing down what you've eaten at that particular portion of the day, write down the time, and then important now is, within 1 to 2 hours, how are you feeling having had that meal? Are your energies raised? Do you have more mental clarity? Do you feel good? Do you feel like you have energy for the next period of time? Like, listening to your body is the number one step. You can go see all the different fantastic health practitioners out there, and you can spend as much money as you want on fantastic food, eating out, cleaning out all these food, going to see the therapist. You can do all that stuff. It's beneficial. But ultimately, if you're not listening to what your body is telling you, your body is so intelligent, and you just got to tap into that intelligence, tune into that frequency. And if you listen to what your body is trying to tell you by way of signs and symptoms, either way, signs and symptoms of health, happiness, and vitality, or signs and symptoms of stress, tension, and pain, either way, okay, what is this telling me? Recognize it. You've taken an action. You've eaten certain food. Now you get some feedback. My body's telling me yes or no. Now I'm going to make a correction. The next day at the same time, I'm not going to eat that food. I'm going to try this instead, because yesterday when I ate that food at that time, it gave me negative side effects on some level. So we've got to get smart. And there's many gross, very sharp, clear signs and symptoms. And then there's very subtle ones too. And it's only through really starting to understand your body, taking time to, read these types of books, and then paying close attention to your body, because we're usually so distracted. There's so many things going on the outside, so to speak, that we rarely take the time to sit and eat a good meal and sit and actually digest that meal and chew our food and engage in some conversation whilst we're having that food. Usually it's a rush food and off we are to the next task at hand. And I get it. I'm a busy parent. I'd say a little bit, maybe less busy now. My kids are a bit older, but I've been there. I've done that. I know what it feels like. And that's why I wrote this book. One of the biggest inspirations was being a busy parent. How can I narrow this down into, quick, bite-sized, edible, chewy things that you can apply right away? And that's the essence of my book. So how much do you eat? You already know. You just got to figure that out for yourselves by listening to what your body is sharing with you, and go get that free tool, my 7-Day Nutrition Sleep Journal, right away. And whilst you're there, download my Attitudes for Health. This is a very powerful resource that I put on there for free too. I talk about in my book about your mindsets, the affirmations that you can use, the mantras that you can use to really help embed. Because again, at the end of the day, you might be eating the finest foods in the world, but if you've got a lot of mental, emotional stress going on, that food's only going to serve you to a certain degree, and you're consuming a vast amount of calories by worrying and experiencing these negative states of mind. So we've got to cut that. We've got to change that. Well, at least that's my experience. And so to do that, we can use the tools such as Attitudes of Health. I'm going to zip 14 minutes in. I like to try to keep this around 10 minutes. Go get this free digital copy while you can. Thank you for joining me. Remember, your muscle health is my #1 priority, and we'll see you again tomorrow for my book of the week.